Serious, NSW. People who were friends with celebrities of any kind, including adult films. How did they act once they started becoming famous? Grew up with Andy Samberg. He was always pretty funny in the exact same style as he is now. He's pretty down to earth and treats people well, even when they're awkward around him. My parents went to his wedding and apparently that was crazy. Big, lavish. What you'd expect from a celeb wedding. Also I owe him a Batman toy. You should just randomly hand him a Batman toy. Just a super cheap one. I went to school with Tasty from Orange Is the New Black in middle school. She was cool then. She's still cool now. On Facebook anyway. My grandfather was in the same army unit as Elvis Presley. Since Elvis was the jeep driver for the company commander and my grandfather was a senior co, they would see each other very often. My grandfather speaks highly of Elvis. He did what he was called up to do with little fanfare and was a hard worker who did right by his fellow soldiers. My grandpa was in that same unit. I went to school with Josh Gad, Olaf, various curly-haired chubby guys, co-star in The Comedians. He's always been a warm-hearted, excessively energetic guy. Honestly, we still have a lot of mutual friends and he's really stayed the same. He's just a lot busier. He's one of the few people trying to break in who I really rooted for. Some people don't go bad, thankfully. Elder Cunningham. What an incredible performer. Tim Duncan. Literally, the exact same guy at 19 years old as he is this very moment. Minor exception being that he is slightly more guarded in areas involving his relationship's personal life because of messy situation with marriage. I love hearing this. Huge Tim Duncan fan. Glad he is not on butthole. I'm currently friends with Dave Matthews. I met him about 10 years ago and we totally clicked. I can't stand his music, but he's a super rad dude. Totally down to earth. Not arrogant. Runs his own errands and raises his own kids. If a fan ever approaches him, he stops what he's doing and always takes the time to talk, which I really love. He also smokes hella weed. Molly Holly, the WWE wrestler, used to babysit me. Well, she used to be a wrestler for WWE. I don't know how well known she is because I don't watch wrestling at all. I don't know he super well because I was really little when she babysat me. But when I got older I would run into her occasionally when she was home. Her mom was also my lunch lady at school, Bonnie Greenwald. Such a nice lady. Nora Greenwald is Molly Holly's real name, and she is super nice and down to earth. Every time I ran into her when I got older, she would tell me this story about when she babysat me. We were playing on the trampoline and I was pretending to be a tiger, and I guess I bit her finger super hard and made her bleed. I don't remember this at all, but she always brings it up. So basically, 3-year-old me took down a WWE wrestler. I went to middle school with Chance the Rapper and he's exactly what his persona gives off. A really down-to-earth guy who really just cares about making everyone around him happy and smile. This makes me happy as a big Chance fan. He also strikes me as a little bit of an awkward speaker in interviews, which is a shame because if he publicized his stuff more, he could be a bigger star. He has that much talent. I went to high school with Anna Kendrick. By the time I met her she had already been on Broadway, but she wasn't nearly as recognizable as she is now. She was getting major parts in both high school plays and movies like Camp while we were friends, but unless you specifically asked her about it, she never talked about it. I'm so happy that Anna has become beloved for her odd, funny, sweet, innocent and yet sarcastic and sharp personality, because it's exactly how she was in her day-to-day life when I knew her. Her mother comes into the movie theater I work at when one of her movies come out and just gloats and got super offended when I didn't know who Anna Kendrick was. A friend of mine interned on The Price is Right a little over a decade ago. He called me when he went to the restroom after Bob Barker because Bob didn't flush his crap, just left it floating. Man, I wish picture messaging was a thing back then. I'd have a picture of Bob Barker's turd. Instead I just have a hazy memory of my buddy describing it and the two of us having a good 10-minute conversation of what his daily fiber intake must be. That's about as close as I ever got to having a famous friend. I worked with Emma Stone for a few years. Granted it was after she'd come into some fame, but still, she is exactly how you see her on interviews. She's humble, hilarious, and down to earth. She treats everyone as if they're her equal and she's never met a stranger. Emma Stone crush increasing. I know one of the stars from Silicon Valley. He is still the same old hilarious dude he always was. Nice to see him having success. I'm gonna say Thomas Middleditch because the rest of the cast was already pretty famous from other projects. My old co-worker is now a TV director. Now all I hear from him is when he sends out mass texts asking for money for his next project. He still owes me $20 from when he was a nobody and I bought him dinner. I went to high school with Michael Phelps. I can't claim we were friends, but he did sit next to me for a year in US government class. He was always nice to me and would make polite conversation before class. We were 100% in different social circles. I was shy nerdy, and as you can guess he was popular and well liked. This was around the time of his first run at the Olympics. I remember our school made a huge deal about it and declared Michael Phelps Day. He seemed a bit embarrassed by it all. He was a nice kid, a bit fidgety and bored in class though, but who wouldn't be? Phelps has ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so that explains why he was always so fidgety and also seemed bored. He totally wanted not to be there, sitting still. Played baseball with two guys growing up that ended up in the majors. I haven't heard from or seen the one since he got signed, but the other one actually comes in all the time. He's a relief pitcher for the Nationals now. He has been with about 6 teams now. He's not a big name guy but makes money doing what a lot of people dream of. He doesn't have a 7-figure deal but makes around $500K a year and hasn't changed a bit. He just recently bought a house because he got married and is expecting a kid. Last time I saw him was at a local bar and he was still living out of his parents' house when he was in town and paid everyone's bar tab off before leaving. He was always, and as far as I know, is still a real stand-up dude. My friend is Chris Pratt's nephew. He grew up in my hometown, which the media likes to pretend is some quaint redneck town stuck in the past. Hint, it's not. From what he's told me, Chris is pretty much the same exact guy he is in interviews as he is in real life. A genuinely nice guy. Sometimes he just stops by his nephew's house to say hi in between movies. Maybe I'll meet him someday. Also, my sister used to live next to his mom until my sister moved. Small world. Knew Buster Posey in college. He was a great guy back then, super chill, but laser focused on baseball and confident, but not cocky. Haven't talked to him in quite a while, but I remember seeing him after he had basically realized he was going to make it, which is very far from a given in baseball, regardless of being drafted 5th overall, and he was excited more than anything. Really good dude, deserves what he has because he works his butt off. I played high school football with Aaron Hernandez. He completely changed when he got famous. Never killed anyone when we were young. That you know of. Went to middle school work Selena Gomez. She was actually a real good friend of mine. She was very sweet and was just doing small gigs back then, like a Joe's Crab Shack commercial. I tried once to write her, to congratulate her on Get Success back when she was on the Disney Channel. No response. Was a great friend and awesome lunch buddy. To be fair, she probably never saw the letter. Went to high school with, and was bullied by, a girl who went on to be a model on Project Runway. She was an entitled B in high school, continued to be an entitled B, while hiding behind a public persona. Once she was on the show, and as far as I know, might still be an entitled B. Last I heard, she was some millionaire's trophy wife. But hey, she put me within 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon, so I can be grateful for that. Oh, 3 degrees. I'm good friends with Lord Ella, and she hasn't changed at all. She still wants to be treated like a normal kid. I saw her at my friend's house party and she was treated as was one of the kids on the block. My family is good friends with Carol Spinney, the original actor who played Big Bird, and Oscar. He has always been super nice to everyone I've seen him talk to, including me. He is an older gentleman who enjoys traveling outdoors and collecting items from around the world. I used to do landscaping jobs on his property for him when I was younger. He has a nice chunk of property with 8 ponds, items from across the world, and even a recreation of Stonehenge on it. He is retired now, but still throws friend and family parties every year. During the parties, kids will beg to hear his Big Bird voice, and he gives every kid a free toy in his toy shop. a collection of toys from around the world. He also always throws a puppet show which includes Oscar, if he can borrow it from the studio, and a few other puppets he owns. When Oscar is brought into the puppet show he says hi to all of the little kids at the party. Oscar still says my name every year even though I am 21 now. The way you say items from around the world makes me think that's in his free time Big Bird is Indiana Jonesing around the world collecting artifacts. Went to high school with Sasha Grey, porn star. She was a mellow girl, smoked a lot of weed. She was super cool about me messaging her on MySpace when she became famous. I was friends with the kid who played Rico in Hannah Montana Moises Arias in elementary school. He was one of the chillest kids in school back then, but now he's a complete douche. That kid looks like a goblin of some sort. I went to high school with Larry Nance Jr. Now he got drafted to the Lakers. Pretty much the same guy. Can be okay, can be a douche. I just remember his mom yelling at him in elementary school for not helping clean up after class party. I knew a kid that was a popsicle model for Bluebell. He was 5 years old at the time and didn't seem to enjoy the work. I remember sending Ludacris an email. He had his email address on his website. Shortly after hearing What's Your Fantasy on a local NC hip hop radio station for the first time, telling him how much I loved the track and how I couldn't wait for a whole album. He responded with a very grateful email talking about how much the praise meant and how cool it was that the single was starting to get some traction. This was in the summer of 1999, I'm pretty sure. Now that's a cool story. Tommy Chong babysat me once when I was a kid. I have 2 pictures of me sitting in his lap. One as a 10-year-old and one as a 28-year-old. He's a super cool, very nice guy. Please find the pictures. Taylor Lautner was my friend through middle school and into high school. He was already in the movies and such when he came to our school, but he was always super nice. He added me on Facebook after I moved away, but when I went to show someone after Twilight had come out he had deleted his Facebook. At that age I felt slighted, but now I realize he likely had to keep his personal info a little safer. Ashley Tisdale graduated from my high school as well, but she was a few years ahead of our grade. There's probably a few more people I'm missing, but those 2 are pretty notable. The younger son from the George Lopez show went to high school with me as well. Used to skate with him a bunch. Down to earth guy. Shark boy. I grew up with Maddie Bowman, halfpipe skiing Olympic gold medalist. She is considered the best female halfpipe skier in the world. Fame has not changed her at all. She is still the quiet, nice, down to earth girl she has always been. I still ride with her when she comes home. For me, the change is what made her famous. I went to high school with Lauren Drain. For those who don't know, Lauren was a member of the Westboro Baptist Church and became famous when she broke off and wrote a book called Banished. All of the Phelps children, the Westboro Baptist Church's pastor's grandchildren, went to my high school in Topeka, Kansas. Interestingly enough, all of the children were incredibly nice. I was heavily involved in debate and forensics. They were not, and had gotten a very early impression that their beliefs were infused via a form of brainwashing when they would post anti-gay sentiments in the school newspaper. Lauren was very quiet. I attempted to talk to her a few times, but nothing beyond hellos. She didn't wear makeup and wore clothes that were either hand-me-downs or homemade, none of which I cared one way or another about. But after writing Banished, she very clearly changed. In fact, she's huge into working out and is incredibly attractive. I sent her a message congratulating her on breaking free and also on the success of her book. She wrote back, which was cool, but she's definitely changed from the meek, quiet girl who didn't say anything in high school. She does modeling and such. Ultimately, no matter what, I'm very glad she was able to break free of WBC and such a negative mentality. A lot of the other children who were going there have as well. Grew up family friends with Win and Will Butler of the Arcade Fire. They are great guys. We used to sneak the boozy eggnog at our parents' holiday parties when we were kids. They still send invites to shows. Just don't see them much anymore. I knew Macklemore as a teenager. We had lots of mutual friends and hung out quite a few times, but were never particularly close. I spent enough time with him to have a few embarrassing stories to share. I didn't pay him much attention because he bullied my brother at school. He was a run-of-the-mill, not super popular but not unpopular, average semi-douchey, cocky teenager. Didn't stand out much. It seems like he did the normal thing douchey teens do and grew out of it into a decent guy. Anyway, I'm glad he's become so successful. You and your brother should start a group called Macklemore to show him a thing or two. I know Playboy bunny Chloe Terry Thompson from high school. She had transferred into the school and was immediately given the name Pornster Girl, and she looked the part. She got a boob job after a few months, and weeks after that dropped out. She's just as obsessed with money, makeup, and fame as she was in grade 10. Frankly, she's as artificial as she looks. My uncle has become a solid C+, maybe even a B in Hollywood. He still gets his kicks rummaging through and finding clothes in vintage shops. But he has all this money now. So instead of bumming around town, he bought a mansion in another country and spends his time jet-setting around the world. Also, his dog travels first class with him. And he got the dog from the pound in another country. What the hell? Every other person answering the question just up and names their relative on Reddit. Am I too paranoid or something? Tickle, the guy from Moonshiners and had his own spin-off for a bit, isn't really a friend, but we've hung out at parties and bars a couple of times. I can say with all honesty he's the same piece of crap in person that he is on television. I was best friends with Magic Card Crack Kid in high school. Not surprised in the slightest. He's probably the same frickin' dude. Not a real celebrity, but my girlfriend was good friends with Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China. Apparently, after he won, he became a huge tool and alienated every friend he had before going on the show. Probably because of all the alcohol he drinks. I hope he gets better though, one of my favorite winners. I spent a few years in college photographing a lot of members of the NYC hip hop scene and saw a few friends, and a few people I didn't know as well, climb into relative notoriety. The biggest factor from my opinion was age and how long they spent working to get where they got. I had a friend that took almost a decade to get a major record deal, and while yay things changed for him, he didn't become some different person or anything. Some of his peers that became more successful rather quickly really became buttholes though. There were a few people that I was cool enough with to have a conversation and chill while at functions together. But just a few months later, now that people knew who they were on a national stage, they were too cool for me. Mostly because I wasn't a musician myself, I think. And generally the younger they were when they had their break, the more it got to their heads. The difference between an 18-year-old seeing success and a 25-year-old seeing success was really significant. I also got to hear all kinds of insider dirt about a ton of celebrities, mostly from managers, publicists, since I guess they all know each other. I went to high school with Dave Franco. He was a dong. Also he's like 5 foot nothing. Also I went to art school with Heather from America's Next Top Model. At first she was just this really tall, really attractive girl who walked everywhere kinda fast and had a bit of a cold attitude about her. It turns out she has Asperger's. After she came back from doing the show, she seemed a lot friendlier with everybody. Last time I saw her, she was making the motorcycle from Akira in the Mire. I made her laugh with some lame game design jokes, so that was cool. TLDR, I am a man of average height. Well, Dave Franco does look like a douchebag. Went to high school with someone who became a WWE wrestler in the last 8 years. You can come up with any cliche-tired line about how nice, funny, and great he was and it would actually all apply to him. The dude was freaking awesome, hilarious, and genuinely great to be around. Even dang near every teacher loved him. Crap, I can't actually remember anyone who didn't like him. I live near Nicholas Sparks. I go to school with some of his kids and I've talked with people who've known him before he went big. He was the image of a starving artist. Now he has his thumb in every pie. He helped build up a local private school. Then when he no longer liked the headmaster, he rallied the board and got rid of him. He introduced a new guy, which ended up backfiring because after the school didn't like him. Mostly because he was completely inadequate for the job. The guy sued the school on the grounds of discrimination. He was Jewish, but not really. He identified as a Quaker Jew. Still don't know how that works. Nick's not the nicest guy. His wife left about half a year ago. She bought a house about 3 months before people around town knew. The magazines knew about 4 months after that. His kids are okay. Miles is nice. I play soccer with Landon. Savannah and Lexi I don't know anything about, but I haven't heard nice things yet. He puts tons of money into anything around town. Sure, he's pompous, but at least he's still charitable. Even let the fire department torture his house for training when he was remodeling. You can tell from the crap he writes that he's a giant douche. My oldest friend's little brother is the star of a pretty popular TV show on TruTV. Not hugely famous, but he's on his way. Still the same cool, wacky, funny guy that I've known forever. It was kind of strange seeing his face on a billboard in Times Square knowing I beat him up in like 1984 or something. I went to high school with 2 dudes who are now insanely popular on YouTube. They are super down to earth, nice, humble, and hardworking. They don't act like they're better than anyone else. I never would have picked these 2 for such great success in what they do, but it couldn't have happened to 2 nicer people. Proud to call them friends. I kind of forget how popular these guys are sometimes. All I came here to do was let the internet know that they're really kind people who haven't let an iota of their fame go to their heads. Out of respect for them and their privacy, I'm not disclosing anything else about them besides. I'm sure you can find whatever you want to know about them online somewhere else. Justin Bieber. My younger brother went to high school with him and he came over to our house once. Flashback to grade 9. Justin and my brother decided it would be a good idea to play in a puddle that was right beside a house that was being built. My brother told me that he stripped down into his boxers and jumped in this puddle and stepped on a nail. He went home and my mom got a nasty phone call from his mother saying that he wouldn't be coming over again. He was a bad kid before he got famous, was very cocky and bragged about a lot of things. A lot of people in our town didn't like him and created a bad reputation for himself. I remember he was on the city bus with me and the kid beside him said, "This guy's going to be famous one day. Good for him for doing what he does. He is obviously very successful, but to me, he will always be the same person he was back in the day." I went to high school with Kanye. It was a quasi-gifted school in a middle-class suburb. He was just a normal kid like the rest of us. Part of the admissions process for this school was demonstrating a skill in one of the humanities. Both mine and Kanye's were art, but that and gym were the only classes we shared. He was talented and creative in a lot of things in that class, as was I actually, but he was kind of a schlep in gym class, though it's not super fair of me to say that since I was among the few who played sports for my home school, where after I graduated Dwayne Wade went actually. I met Common's mom once and she said Kanye used to come over all the time and hang in their basement. She said Kanye could really eat but Common wouldn't feed him until he focused on music first. Not sure if it's true. Don't think you could verify it. Just thought this was an appropriate spot for my random knowledge. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.